Hold up, wait, I'm gonna stop you right there. Before you go rushing down to the comments below and saying that this video is a lie, full of nonsense, and it's a farce, I'm gonna tell you right now, this video is not. The thumbnail and title are accurate to what you're gonna see in this video, and let me explain why. Well, first off, I've alluded to this video coming for quite a few videos now. In my most recent videos, I mentioned it a few times. But in TCGs, be it Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic, and Bakugan, I guess, in this discussion, there's a couple of rules you have to abide by. Things like the size of the deck, cards you're allowed to have in your hand, copies of particular cards you're allowed to have, banned or limited cards, things like that. Except Bakugan has one little key difference. You're allowed to use physical pieces like toys, the Bakugan, but when you play the game alongside the cards. You know, they're like dice, but not really. And in the rules for Bakugan, you're not allowed to have two of the same Bakugan or more. You're only supposed to have one of each type of Bakugan. So I can only have one Core Dragonoid, one Ultra Dragonoid, and one Core Dragonoid from Armored Alliance. As long as they're different, you're allowed to have them. They can share the same name, but they have to be different. However, in my collection, I have, three Core Fangzords that I mentioned in my collection video not too long ago. And I said I was going to make an illegal deck out of it. So here we are. Now this deck isn't supposed to be serious, it's literally just a joke gaff video I wanted to do for a long time, ever since I realized, hey, I have three of these things, I can make, you know, a full deck with this. It's not legal, you're not allowed to do this. Anyway, without delaying this any further, let's get to the actual profile itself and explain why I'm using the cards I'm using. Okay, here we go, the lineup. We got our three Fangzord, they're all green fists, off to a very bad start already. And if I take away the cores, we can see that their stats are pathetic. We got 400B, 1 punchy, focus camera, please, thank you. And on a green fist to get +1 punchy and double strike. So in theory, you know, if we give it this +150 +2, we're at 1 plus the 1 plus the 2, only has 2 punchies at base because of double strike, so 2 plus the third one here, plus these 2 here, that is only 5 damage. So in theory, best case scenario, 555 damage. We're a horrible, horrible Bakugan at the start. But I want to make this work, and I think I figured out a way to make it work. Hear me out. So look, we already know that Core Fangzord is a bad Bakugan. Even if we give him his best Green Fist core, he's not going to get to very high numbers in the slightest. However, if we stall a little bit, see, in this deck, I've actually given him 3 boosting cores and 3 trap cores. If you can start off the game by putting these trap cores on your opponent's side of the field, that could actually help you. Because, let's face it, this thing is not winning any B battle fights anytime soon. In theory, it could win Mac-Mock, and I went with that. So, for the first few turns, you hope that your opponent lands on these cores. So when you're setting up the Hive Matrix, be sure to put these on your opponent's side of the field and not your own, and don't forget which is which. So hopefully if they roll, they screw up, they land on these things, or you purposely put it on their little track that they may try to make, and you get the debuff. So you might not win the B power fight, but you end up taking no damage in turn. That's how you stall. Don't worry, we're going to get back to why stalling is important for this deck in a second, but to do that we need to go over the deck itself. So let me just, let's go over what you're going to need. First and foremost, you cannot have a Pyrus deck without Dankuso. Now, I've got 2 legit copies of Dankuso, and I had to print a proxy out for this video. You can see it's not quite right. The text is white, the text is a bit fuzzy. This is just a proxy, this is just for visual aid, so you guys can see what I'm talking about. We've got 3 Dankusos. You can't have a Pyrus deck without it, because literally every time you open a Bakugan, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's not a flip, play it for free, you get easy wins. And let's face it, this thing needs as much boost as it can get. So, we got our 3 Dans. I've got 2 copies of E in this deck. Again, it costs 5, but when you open a Bakugan, you get +3 energy for the turn. Yes, you gotta spend a little money to make money. This will carry over to the next turn, but if you can get a Dan off, you can get E off for free, basically. Again, we're relying a lot on Dan, that's why there's 3 copies of him, and only 2 E's. I was going to put 3, but I felt that would have been a bit overkill, and I needed other things in this deck to make it work. Next up, we have Emily. Now again, I unfortunately only have 1 copy. I did print proxies, but I had to use my home printer because I forgot to do these proxies at the print shop. Sorry. So Emily, when you open a Bakugan, make a Pirate's attack for 2 punchies. Now we're going to get back to Emily in a second because she's very expensive. She costs an entire 6 energy to play, and she only gives you, when you open a Bakugan, make 2 punchies. So it's a consistent, every time you open, you do 2 damage before the fight even starts. But if you have 3 of her, she stacks. She actually does stack. So you would get 6 punchies off the bat without even winning a fight yet. Those 6 punchies are better than the Fangzor's best scenario punchies. But again, we'll get back to Emily later, because Dan can get her off. E can help you get her, because by the time you have E out, you'll most likely already have 2 or 3 energy, plus the 3 you can get to play Emily, and Bob's your uncle, you got easy damage off before you fight. Hello there. Hey, so we're at the halfway point of the video, and if you're watching this, you talking to me here, that means you're clearly enjoying the video, and you should subscribe, please. It would mean so much to me if we could reach 500 subs before the end of June this year. That is my goal, and I want to reach it so bad. It would be even better if we somehow reached 400 subs before the end of February this year. That would be phenomenal. But without any further delay, let's just get back to this botched up deck that shouldn't exist. Next, we have Danzo from Battle Resurgence. Your Bakugan get double strike. Now again, like Emily, I had to do a printout at home, but this is just in case we decide to give Fangzor one of the opponent's shields and he won't get the double strike. This allows him to get the double strike regardless, and Dan will play into effect later when I show you Fangzor's evolutions, which I do want to use in this deck. So, we already know that this this Fangzor ain't winning with a B power fight in the slightest, but if we go the damage route with Mac Mock Bait, it can happen. Again, its evolutions, which we'll get to shortly. You'll see how that can work in a sec. So in here we have all of the Fangzor evolutions. We have 3 copies of Diamond Fangzor, 3 copies of Titan Fangzor. I put both because if you lose the first few matches, you're going to lose a lot of cards and you're going to end up just constantly flipping cards and you might run out. So that's why I've got a 6, as much as we can possibly get. So if you get to play either of these, be it via Dan or through E or some other means, you'll get something out of it. So with Diamond Fangzor, this is the one we would want to try and get. You get 1200B base plus 6. If we do Mac Mock Bait for this, it can be good. Double strike on top of that, you're dealing with 12 damage already at base. Plus, Emily can get played in here, and she's just going to have extra punchies every single time, so we're just constantly stacking damage whenever we open. The Titan Fangzor, this is just a last resort if we can't get the Diamond Fangzor out, because he gets a lower buff, but he still gets a double strike if you land on a green fist. Okay, next, I don't have any copies of any of these, so I had to print proxies for both of these. Air Zero, they just work like a Dan, except you only activate them once, and they're one and done. So again, Air Zero and Dan can work to reveal any one of these cards I've put down already, and you get to play it for free without paying a dime. Okay, now we talked about Mac, and of course you can't have Mac without Mock. I only ran 2 copies of this, unfortunately, just because I needed to make room for other items in the deck in case something else were to go awry. Again, this deck is not perfect. I don't know if I've said that already. This deck ain't perfect because we're already working with a very imperfect Bakugan, but I'm doing my best to make it work. Next, we got Super Fuel. Now, I unfortunately had to print out proxies of these because I don't own a single one, but you must reroll your Bakugan. If you open on the roll, the next card you play has 3 energy less to play. This works so well with so many cards, and if you play this turn 1 or turn 2, you're golden. Plus, if you get to reroll, Emily gets to go off, Emily will go off, and you get a +2 damage on your opponent for free again. I think you understand how this is starting to open up. Stack up, knock the camera. Plus, Dan can also get off again if you get Super Fuel before you do Dan. If you have Dan and then do Super Fuel, you get a free reveal. You also get Emily stacked on top of that. You get the idea. Next, I had to print a copy of this as well, but not really. We got Quick Fire. Again, make an attack for 1 damage and you may reroll your Bakugan. So it's just a little bit of chippy and you get to reroll. And I had to print a proxy, except I printed the wrong proxy. So I just wrote here, got 2 Quick Fires actually. Okay, I'll be honest, these cards here are the last ones I added. I had to print these proxies at home. These are the very last cards I added. I just needed something in case somehow Mac-Mock wasn't working. And I just had the Evos and I needed to give them a bit of buff. So you got Rocket Bracers for 4 energy. When you play this, make a Pirates attack for 1 punchy. So you get extra punchies, plus the 300B. It can all stack up in theory if you have Double Strike from the cores, plus Double Strike from Battle Resurgence Dan. You get the idea. Now, of course, because the Fangzor is a very weak Bakugan, we need to have cards to cover our own butt. So I had to have some stoppers. We have Block Pyrus, 3 copies. We have Block Outsiders, 3 copies. And I had to print proxies of these. Excuse the horrible print, I ran out of ink. We have Pyrus Stopper Slam. Stop a Pyrus or Fusion. I had these and these specifically put in my deck because I recently played in a tournament where I didn't have a Stop Fusion card and it cost me the whole match. I was doing well until they pull out the Fusion. Now, that's all 40 cards. I didn't have any Geogon in it. I, in theory, could swap out 1 or 2 of these for Geogon, but I want this pure Mac-Mock damage to work because, in theory, the numbers can get very big. The numbers can get very scary, and they can get rid of a deck in no time. Like, literally, the numbers that I put in certain scenarios can get me up to, like, 20 plus cards in one single hit without a team attack. That is terrifying. Oh, no, excuse me. That was with a team attack. Excuse me. But of course, you can swap it out for other cards. Things like Inferno Brazier worked well with this deck, and Pyrus Strike worked well with this deck as well, because it's a full Pyrus team. So I get extra 6 damage for just 1 energy. So in theory, at turn 1, you play this thing, you can get 6 damage off without even fighting. And then same with Pyrus Strike, you can get plus 3. If you're Pyrus plus 6, plus you have Mac-Mock in there, you're going to have a good time. And lastly, the Nanogon. I put Nanogon in here just because I needed the boost, because I obviously don't have a Geogon in this deck, and they're not perfect, because let's face it, this whole deck ain't perfect. But because all my Bakugan use Green Fists, I have to rely on Bakugan that use Green Fists. We have Nano Riptide here, who only uses Green Fists, so he works perfect for this deck. We have Nano Widow, which uses a single Green Fist and a Green Fist Fire Fist. This is just because I know for a fact majority of good decks run at least a Fire Fist, maybe 1 Fire Fist. And I only have to get 1 of them to get the extra buff. It's just 1 extra bit of circumstance I have to play around with to get it, but it's very situational. Same with the Nano Sludgeum. Again, just 1 extra condition, get the Orange Shield. Here, get the other Orange Shield again, but I can get my 2 Green Fists, no problem. Okay, so that was my very illegal Pyrus Core Fangzor deck that shouldn't exist, yet it does. And I did my best to make it work, and I really hope it can work. It was actually really fun to do. I might do more of these in future with other Bakugan that I have in my collection that I've got duplicates of. But, if you guys did enjoy the video, please hit the like button. And also, if you guys have, just want to try this deck out, do it. Go for it. Let me know how it turned out in the comments below. I want to hear it. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching again, and I'll see you all in the next video. And bye-bye.